Howdy. We're gonna have some fun. I haven't talked about finances at all in probably over a year. So I thought I'd give my perspective on the current market conditions and things like that. And maybe talk a little bit about inflation, interest rates, the Federal Reserve, how that sort of all plays out, how it affects the money supply, and then it affects the stock market and other currencies as it may be. And where maybe the market is going depending on some key factors. So the first thing I want to talk about is the Federal Reserve. Now, we see this word and we think, oh, that's our government. That's who owns it. No, it's private. This is just a scheme to make you think that we, the people, own our own money supply. What the Federal Reserve is a glorified money printing machine that sets an interest rate. And then it prints all this money out, and it is able to do this because of the laws that we have set. I'm not going to get into which ones those are, but go look into 1913 Federal Reserve. Its creation happened in Congress over December when no one was there, so they could squeak it through with no opposition. All right, do your own homework on this. The important thing is it sets interest rates. The federal funds rate is the important one that we need to look at because this boils through to all the regional banks and then the local banks. This is why things are so expensive because interest really is trickle-down economics. Let's say you have a 4% interest rate at the Federal Reserve. So they can print endless amounts of money. As they print this money, then the regional banks borrow the money. So you're a regional bank, and you're like, hey, I need $100,000. Now that $100,000 they receive from the Federal Reserve, and now they have to pay back 4%, or $4,000, going over to the Federal Reserve. Now this regional bank now can loan the money to the local banks. And there's probably another couple layers here, but let's just make it simple. So the local bank, they want $100,000. But since now they, the regional guys, are paying back 4%, they need to do something which is arbitrage, which is a difference in the interest percents so that they can still profit at the regional level. And so now these guys have to pay back 5% on that money. So now these guys make 1%, and now this is going to trickle down again to you. Where if you want $100,000 for a home, you're paying 6%. So there's another layer of this arbitrage. You get +1, +1, and then the 4% back to the Federal Reserve. Now, how this is very key with how the economy works is that when interest rates are low, it actually it stimulates economic growth. This is because the cost of borrowing, these percentage points, go down. Let's say this was 6%. If this is 6%, this is 7%, this is 8%, this is 9%. So every $100,000 that a businessman or you or somebody wanting to purchase an asset, a home, a car, now has to pay a higher interest, which is going to disincentivize borrowing. You're not going to want to do it because the rates are too high. So as this decreases, it goes from 4% to 2%, it increases borrowing. Now you may think this is amazing, this is great, but this is really what leads to inflation. So inflation let's do the supply demand. Okay, so we have a nice little graph down here. So you will see, this could be dollar amount, this could be cost of goods, whatever it may be. And this is cost down here. I guess maybe I shouldn't, yeah, you know what, we're not going to do supply and demand. It's going to make it too complicated. And I don't really need that right now. I'm rolling deep on the coffee, boys. All you need to know is when you have lower interest rates, you're going to have more borrowing. That means at the individual level, these people are borrowing more money. If you have more money being borrowed at the individual level, that means the reserves necessary at the local bank are going to be higher. When the reserves at the local bank are higher, the regional bank is going to need higher reserves. And those reserves come from the Federal Reserve, who doesn't actually hold money, they print money. So in effect, the more borrowing there has to be a higher level of money printing. Now we live in a system where we have gross domestic product. We create goods, we create services. But if we don't have an expansion of the economy, inflation can get out of hands. If you have all the money that is borrowed being reinvested into the actual economy and growth, then the goods that increase, there will be more goods being produced, will offset the amount of extra money in supply. But if people are borrowing money just to reinvest it into tools like the stock market or finite resources that just yield the individual more money but doesn't create more goods, more services, more products for the general market to purchase from, like building homes, for example, it makes all the pre-existing goods more expensive because now you have more dollars chasing the same amount of goods. That same amount of goods has to do something, and it's going to increase in price because the demand has shifted. There's more of a demand on it because it's the same amount, but everyone has more money. Everyone has more money, everyone wants to buy more goods. It's usually how that works. Which brings us to the next point, which is where is it safe in a period of hyperinflation to store your money? So right now, the Federal Reserve is cutting interest rates. As this cuts, it's going to boil through the entire market and people are going to start borrowing more money. That means more money in circulation, more money in the money supply. As there's more money in this money supply, it's going to cause all the goods to cost more money. You're going to see it when it comes to your cars, housing, groceries, oil, gas, anything like that. So where can we invest money where it's going to have an increase in value due to the increase in the money supply? Because if you just hold on to your dollars, you're actually losing value every single day. And that's because as the money supply increases, the purchasing power of the individual dollar decreases. Because if the product costs go up, now you need more of the dollars to buy the exact same amount of goods. So it would be wise to find a vehicle in which you can invest in to store your money as a store of value. And for a couple of years now, it's been like the crypto craze. Everybody's like, crypto, great store of value because there's a finite supply, especially when something like Bitcoin. That one has been great. I don't like it too much. I have some, but there's a better one in my mind than all the crypto, any investment in the market, and that would be gold and silver. The reason for this is because the other countries of the world have been increasing their banking supplies. They're buying up all the gold and the silver. It's necessary because as we proliferate our technology, we get more into AI, we get more into the quantum realm of doing things and higher technologies, we have a greater demand on silver and gold, especially as conductor parts. They go into chips, they go into AI applications, they go into the mining rigs. There's a lot of use for them when it comes to different places across the world. However, the key thing is you can't print more of it. You can't print more. And its value is going to increase as the money supply increases. If you increase the amount of dollars in circulation, Well, if you have a finite supply of gold that stays relatively stagnant and we only can, drill up a certain amount of it per year, we're going to need more investment into it. As the investments roll in, there's going to then become more gold, but the demand is going to skyrocket as well. More money in supply equals higher prices per ounce for precious metals, anything that is finite. It is the same thing as inflation. However, gold and silver don't lose value. And the last part, this is purely speculation. Guys, by the way, I'm not a financial advisor. This is just so you can kind of understand why things cost what they are and inflation, how the game sort of works. And the main point is so you get interested and you start looking at things too. That's it. Okay? So miss me with that shit like, oh my God, I should all in gold and silver because this guy in the... Shut up. Stop. Just shh. Oh. Where was I going with this? So after inflation, I see this going up. I see the money supply increasing, and then due to the money supply increasing, as well as some of the government policies and things that have happened recently, there have been more layoffs. Now, typically throughout history, gold has been a great hedge against the stock market. Anytime the stock market goes down, gold goes up because it's a safe haven investment. It's something that's going to hold its value and it's going to increase over time because it's finite. Now, what's very interesting as of late, since about like 2020, the decoupling, I'd say with like everything, all the regular metrics, is that the stock market has been on a tear. It's just going up recently. And gold is doing the exact same. And so is silver. And that doesn't make much sense. If gold goes up when the market goes down, and then gold is also going up on an absolute tear when the market is going up, I think somebody is fudging numbers. Woo! And that leads me to believe that when there is a market downturn, which there always will be, in a cycle, that gold is going to go off the rails, skyrocket. Same thing with silver. People are not going to want to put their money in the market when they see that production is actually slowing because there are people losing their jobs. When they see, due to tariffs and other geopolitical events, maybe wars, maybe disagreements with other countries, trading deficits, all this other bullshit that takes place because of our overlords, they're playing chess with our souls and our money. As that increases, people are going to be less incentivized to buy stocks. Why would you want to hold a stock if the performance is just not there, if the growth opportunity is not there? And so people are going to have a new age gold rush where they want the precious metals. They want to hold on to something that they know is real. Because right now, we print paper money to buy paper shares. They're fake. It's a fugazi. It's not real. It's just within a market, and we look at these digital pixels on a screen and we say, oh yeah, I'm up all this money, but do you actually have anything on you? What happens if it all just crashes? What happens if they close your account? There's a lot of things that they could do to control the money supply and even strip back the money from you, which has happened throughout history. So all I'm going to say in conclusion of this, because I don't want to be like a doomer about what's going to happen, but I do see that the market keeps going up, and I don't know how sustainable that is given government shutdowns and our increase in debt. We're going to need to keep printing money just to pay off the interest on the money that we printed in the past, because, I think it's $37 trillion. You have an interest rate attached to that. So you have to borrow money to pay back the interest, which just increases the debt. And as that debt increases more and more, eventually it's going to get to a hyperbolic curve where you're just going to need to print an endless amount of money. And so when you print an endless supply of money, that money supply is going to skyrocket up, and it's going to actually increase the value greatly of things that are finite in supply. and the stuff that is fake, that is paper, is going to decrease. It's gonna fall off. It's going to be obliterated. Don't take my word for it. I'd love to see your guys' comments. Who knows where this all is going? But in the short term, it's nice. Go get a house. Go get a car. Go get something. I wouldn't recommend buying a car on interest. I would recommend trying to full buy it or buy used. Same thing with a house. The higher your down payment is, the better it is for you with the loan amortization schedule. You don't want to be paying off 30 years of primarily interest, where by the time you finish the loan, you paid 3x the value of the actual house. It's better to increase the amount you have in a down payment and then pay back the lower rate, which there's a lot of tools that you can use to do that. So all in all, I've been loading heavy, personally speaking, on gold and silver. I believe in them. I like them. The year-to-date gains on it are insane, and it's only going to keep going up as we keep into this period of hyperinflation. And the reason I'm saying hyperinflation is because we've been keeping interest rates higher to dissuade people from borrowing money to try and put a slowdown on inflation. We had inflation due to a supply shock carrying over from COVID. There's people that were laid off, there's people that didn't work, logistics got all fucked up, so there's less goods in the marketplace. And then you also have stimulus checks going out, so you had an increase in the money supply and you had a decrease in goods, which punches prices up massively. It causes inflation. So then to combat the inflation, you have to increase interest rates so people are not borrowing as much money, but then again, it makes buying things like homes, cars, goods, that type of stuff, it makes it more expensive because people can't borrow money. It costs too much. So we have to decrease and play this dance between interest rates and inflation. And I see the period that we're going into now as one in which once this number starts to drop off a little bit more, there's going to be many more people that are actually pulling money out. They're borrowing from the banks again. And as that pulls on the system, it's going to cause more money to be printed, and then that higher money supply is going to trickle down into increased cost for finite goods. So, let me know. Let me know what you guys think. Love you guys. Namaste.